The woman discovered that her husband had rummaged through her underwear and thrown it everywhere. I understand now. I understand now. What are you afraid of? Wait till I catch you in the act. Is it real or not? The woman felt that her husband was really strange, so she kicked him and knocked him to the ground. She asked back, "Have you been drinking?" The man answered firmly, but he seemed too drunk and began barking like a dog. To prove her innocence, the woman took off her underwear and threw it to her husband for him to check. After he finished checking, she also came closer and sniffed it herself. Aside from the strong smell of alcohol, there didn't seem to be any other smell. The woman covered her face and asked herself, "How could you suspect me? Am I that kind of woman?" The reason the man suspected his wife was because he had recently lost his job. Mansu used to be a worker at Solar Paper, a long-established paper factory in South Korea. As the manager of a production line, he had a decent income and lived a rather proud life. He lived in a large house, had a beautiful wife, 2 lovely children, and even raised 2 big dogs. The family lived together harmoniously and happily. After work, Mansu often grilled meat in the yard or took his family out for picnics. It could be said that it was a standard middle-class life. But life is unpredictable. As the manufacturing industry declined more and more, Solar Paper was bought by Americans. Once the new management took control, they immediately introduced a strategy of cutting costs and increasing efficiency. As a longtime employee, Mansu had deep feelings for his colleagues. He was preparing to represent the workers in negotiations with the management. But a remark from a colleague beside him left him stunned. Not long before, Mansu's family had received a gift from the company. He thought it was simply a company present, but now he realized that sending the gift was actually a signal that layoffs were coming. Losing a job was a serious matter, so Mansu did not dare tell his wife Miri the truth. Instead, he quietly went out to look for another job. But several months passed with no results. In the end, he had no choice but to confess to his wife, and swore that he would find a job within 3 months. However, 13 months passed and he still had not found stable work. Mansu could only take odd jobs at the supermarket to help cover the family expenses. Fortunately, he finally got a chance for an interview in the industry. A former subordinate had recommended him. But Mansu was not a good talker, so his performance in the interview was not very good. The former subordinate advised him to prepare a backup plan. If he was not hired, he should try going to Moon Paper. This company was a Korean paper enterprise. While the whole industry was declining, it was one of the rare companies that was thriving. If he could get a job there, it would truly be the best outcome. Because his family owed more than 10 million won on a home loan. If they could not repay it within 3 months, the bank would come to repossess the house. To save money, Miri planned to cut even the internet bill. More importantly, she was planning to sell their current house and have the whole family move out to rent a place instead. But to Mansu, this house was not just property. It was also a memory of his childhood. Mansu's father had once been a wealthy pig farmer in the area, and this house was the ancestral home of the family. But later the family declined, his father committed suicide, and the house was sold. Many years later, Mansu finally managed to buy the old house back. And now he had to face the possibility of selling it once again. After so many years of hard work, everything seemed to be returning to zero, which made Mansu feel extremely desperate. Mansu held his cheek as the pain from his decayed tooth grew more and more intense. To hold on to everything he still had, he was determined to find a job as soon as possible. His last hope was Moon Paper. He even went there personally to recommend himself, kneeling on the ground, crying and begging. But that not only failed to help, it also brought him humiliation. The person who humiliated Mansu was named Sun Chul, a manager at Moon Paper. His position might not sound very high, but because the company was doing extremely well, his power was far from small. Even a team leader in the company enjoyed very generous. Sun Chul was thriving in the company, like a fish in water. When the company filmed a promotional video, he was even featured on camera as the main spokesperson. Watching him speak energetically in front of the camera, Mansu felt extremely uncomfortable inside. All kinds of gloomy thoughts drifted through his mind. Miri casually joked, "If Sun Chul died, that would be great, haha." It was only meant as a joke, but it stirred waves in Mansu's heart. That's right, if Sun Chul died, wouldn't he have a chance to replace him? Thinking of this, Mansu immediately became excited. He chose a day and quietly followed Sun Chul, finally finding an opportunity to make his move. He climbed onto a rooftop and carried a flower pot over, preparing to throw it straight onto Sun Chul's head. But at the crucial moment, he hesitated. He raised the flower pot and lowered it again, unable to make himself do it. Suddenly, Mansu thought of something. Even if he killed Sun Chul, it didn't necessarily mean he would get that position. There would still be many people applying and competing with him. So Mansu took the pot of red peppers back home and began making a more detailed plan. He fabricated a fake paper company, pretended to be the boss himself, and posted a job recruitment to the public. The purpose was to filter out potential rivals and clearly identify the range of people competing with him. Before long, job applications from all over began arriving. Among the many applicants, Mansu evaluated their competitive abilities. Combined with the recruitment requirements of Moon Paper, he realized that 2 people had abilities that surpassed his. And these 2 people became the next targets that needed to be eliminated. The person ranked first was named Bimamo. He came from a long-established paper-making family. His uncle was among the first generation in the Korean paper industry. From a young age, he had already entered the paper industry, with extremely deep experience and seniority. His achievements were also outstanding. Like Mansu, he had once received the title of Outstanding Pulp Producer of the Year. Although Mansu's ability was already among the top in the industry, Byung-mo was still one level above him. It could be said that he was the greatest threat. Based on the address in the resume, Mansu went to Byung-mo's house. The house was located in the mountains, in a rather remote place. But seeing surveillance cameras around the area, Mansu did not dare act recklessly. Just as he was observing with binoculars, a strange man quietly sneaked out of the house. Mansu didn't want to be seen by anyone else. But on the mountain road, he almost ran into Byung-mo face to face. Mansu immediately pulled out the gun he had prepared in advance. The gun had been left behind by his father. His father had been a veteran who participated in the Vietnam War. He once taught Mansu an important lesson. On the battlefield, if you don't kill others, others will kill you. And Mansu's situation now felt just like that. Either replace others, or be replaced by others. He aimed at the target, preparing to pull the trigger. But at that moment, a woman's voice suddenly rang out and startled him. Mansu hid to the side and secretly listened to the conversation between Byung-mo and his wife Ara. Byung-mo's personality and situation were strangely similar to Mansu's. Both were going through a midlife crisis. Both were under enormous family pressure. Both deeply loved the paper industry and did not want to leave it. Both also had cracks in their marriages. Ara advised her husband to give up his obsession with this industry and try something else, for example, opening a cafe. But Byung-mo refused to listen at all. He muttered to himself as if suffering from paranoia. Then he ignored his wife and angrily ran back to the house, not caring about the shouting behind him. Mansu, eavesdropping nearby, felt extremely embarrassed. Without paying attention, he was even bitten by a snake. Fortunately, Ara helped him deal with it in an emergency. At that moment, his wife Miri called him. Mansu was so frightened that he didn't even dare answer the video call. After a day full of shock and fear, Mansu returned home with a blank expression. Although the plan had not progressed smoothly, he was not someone who gave up easily. The next day, the plan continued. He avoided the cameras and prepared to enter the house to observe. But when he got closer, he encountered an extremely awkward scene. Ara could not bear her husband's coldness after losing his job. She had been having an affair for a long time. The strange man Mansu saw the day before was her lover. Since the target was not at home, Mansu had no choice but to leave. But on the way, he saw Byung-mo driving back. Mansu immediately turned his car around and returned as well. Somewhat ironically, Mansu began to feel sympathy for the man he intended to kill. To prevent Byung-mo from discovering his wife's affair, he called him while pretending to be the recruitment officer of the Red Pepper Company. He said that the boss was very interested in him and wanted to arrange a meeting. Byung-mo was overjoyed and decided to go meet them immediately. But first he wanted to change his clothes. Mansu anxiously watched through binoculars. After a while, Byung-mo came out with a pale face, rolling painfully on the ground. It seemed that he had discovered the truth. Mansu felt extremely conflicted but did not know what to do. One day, Mansu went to Byung-mo's house and pointed a gun at him. Strangely, Byung-mo showed no fear at all. Instead, he shouted, "The one Ara loves is me." At that moment, both Mansu and Ara were stunned. It turned out that Byung-mo had mistaken him for Ara's lover. Ara suddenly took action, and the gun fell to the ground. The situation immediately reversed. Mansu panicked and turned to run away. But before he could run far, a gunshot rang out behind him. His legs went weak and he collapsed onto the ground. Ara had long been dissatisfied with her husband. Now that the affair had been discovered, she decided to finish the matter once and for all. Seeing the scene in front of him, Mansu hurried back to his car. Just as he let out a sigh of relief, he suddenly remembered that today, Miri had arranged for him to attend a costume party with her. Mansu sped toward the party as fast as he could, but when he arrived, he discovered that Miri was dancing with a colleague. Thinking about the tragedy that had happened during the day, Mansu suddenly felt a chill run through his heart. He drove back to the crime scene. Ara and her lover had already buried the body along with the gun. While the two of them went inside to fool around, Mansu secretly retrieved the gun. That evening when he returned home, he coldly questioned Miri about whether she had done that with her colleague. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed forward and demanded to check her underwear. Miri kicked Mansu away and noticed that his body reeked of alcohol. The things that had happened recently had made Mansu suspicious and mentally tense. Combined with the pressure of unemployment, he became even more prone to wild suspicion. Worse still, Miri had also begun to distrust him. Recently, Mansu had always said he was going to interviews, but his behavior was very suspicious. She suspected that he was dating another woman. Mansu wanted to explain, but he did not dare tell the truth. To break the current deadlock, he had no choice but to accelerate his plan. After eliminating Bimong, Mansu shifted his attention to the next target. Seijo had an excellent resume and rich work experience, making him another dangerous competitor. Moreover, he also had work experience in Japan. And at that very time, Moon Paper was preparing to expand into the Japanese market. According to the information in the resume, Mansu followed the clues and found Seijo's workplace. After losing his job, Seijo had become a salesman in a shoe store. In order to earn money to support his family, he had completely set aside his pride. When Mansu went there to observe, he even saw Seijo's daughter visiting the store. Hearing his daughter say she wanted to go out with her friends, Seijo took a few bills from his wallet and placed them into her hand. Just as he was giving his daughter instructions, a customer in the store left because they had waited too long. Seeing that scene, Mansu began to hesitate. Once again, he saw a reflection of himself in his target. He also had a daughter and understood how hard the other man's life must be. Just as he was about to go outside to calm himself down, Seijo called him back. The two chatted for a few moments in the store. Seijo took the opportunity to recommend children's shoes to him. He even said that when Mansu's daughter finished school, he could bring her to take a look. The store closed at 7 p.m., but he was willing to wait until 8 p.m. Mansu did not arrive at the appointed time. He deliberately came late and parked his car in the middle of the road. Late at night, Sisho finally arrived. Hearing that Mansu's car had broken down, he enthusiastically helped repair it. Perhaps it was because of his kind nature, or perhaps because he didn't want to lose a customer. But to Mansu, none of that mattered anymore. Mansu removed the dash camera, dragged the body into the trunk of the car, and quickly left the scene. The location of the crime had also been carefully calculated by him. It was near the sea, which could mislead the police's investigation. He thought he had done everything very carefully, but in his panic, he accidentally left behind a shell casing at the scene. The following night, Mansu dragged the body to a greenhouse. At first, he intended to use an electric saw to destroy the corpse. But because he could not overcome the psychological barrier, he instead tied the body into a bundle with steel wire and buried it hastily. On top of it, he even planted a tree to cover it up. Not long after, the police came to his house. They first showed him photos of the two victims and asked whether he knew them. After he denied it, the police explained. After Siho disappeared, his wife had reported it to the police. The police found Siho's car on the coastal road, along with a shell casing and traces of blood. In addition, they also found his phone. After checking it, it was full of missed calls. The police traced the calls and discovered that they came from a paper company. According to the company, Siho had ranked second in the interview. The person they originally intended to hire was Bameyamo, but for some unknown reason, they could not contact him. And now Sijo had also disappeared. Two people vanishing mysteriously one after another naturally attracted the police's attention. They investigated Sijo's network of relationships and discovered that he had known Bamo before. Combined with the fact that both of them had participated in interviews at the same company, the police believed that their disappearances were very likely related to that interview. Therefore, the police were now meeting the other applicants one by one to dig deeper for clues. Hearing this information, Mansu was secretly horrified. Many of the things the police revealed were things he himself did not even know. For example, the paper company that had announced the recruitment earlier was exactly the same company where he had once gone for an interview. Bamo and Sicho had also participated in that interview, and they had known each other beforehand. Another important piece of information was the shell casing. After examination, the police had identified the type of gun. This gun had been manufactured in North Korea. In South Korea, that type of gun is very rare. Fortunately, this time the police did not conduct an official search. Otherwise, Mansu would certainly have been exposed. Deep down, he felt secretly relieved. But Miri suddenly thought of something and quietly hid the gun inside the cabinet. After a few simple exchanges, the police told Mansu to be sure to pay attention to safety. A stiff smile appeared on Mansu's face. But reality also proved that Mansu's evaluation of the applicants' competitive abilities had been very accurate. In that company's interview, the two people at the top of the ranking had both disappeared. According to his judgment, the next person to be hired was very likely to be him. This hunt seemed as if it could finally stop. But Mansu decided to continue acting. At this point, he could no longer sit and wait for death, because his real target was a better job at Moonpaper. In order to achieve that, there was still one person who had to be eliminated. Late at night, Seonchul finished work and was on his way home. Suddenly, someone jumped out, frightening him so much that he cursed on the spot. Mansu stepped out with a grin, saying that he had been waiting for him all day. He also said that after the interview that day, he'd become a loyal fan of him. Today he had come just to meet his idol and have a chat. Mansu's string of flattery made Seonchul very pleased. The two drank and chatted happily. After several rounds of drinking, Seonchul began to speak honestly. On the surface, he had a good job and had even bought a new house. But in reality, his married life was very disharmonious. Since moving into the new house, his wife had never once come to live there. At work, he was also often made things difficult for by his boss. The work of many people was pushed onto him alone. Then he even showed Mansu the sample paper product that he was responsible for producing. Mansu looked at it for a while and then revealed a disdainful smile. What they called their best product was actually nothing but trash. This guy was very likely taking kickbacks from suppliers. As a professional who always pursued perfection, Mansu could not help but say, "You're only a production line manager. How could you afford a house like that?" Fortunately, Seonchul was already drunk and did not pay much attention. While Mansu was carrying out his plan, something else happened at home. His son told his mother that a few days earlier he had seen his father carrying a bag into the greenhouse. After that, he used an electric saw to cut something. Since that day, he had been having nightmares continuously and could not sleep well at night. Hearing this, Miri was shocked. She immediately checked Mansu's gun box. She discovered that the real gun had disappeared. In its place was only a fake model. A terrifying thought suddenly appeared in her mind. Miri destroyed several fruit trees that Mansu had recently planted and discovered a bag containing a corpse. While drinking and becoming increasingly excited, Mansu took a pair of large pliers and personally pulled out the decayed tooth that had been causing him pain for so long. Seonchul greatly admired Mansu's ruthlessness, and his mood became even more excited. He suggested going out to the yard to continue drinking. At that time, Seonchul was already drunk to the point of losing consciousness. Killing him would have been as easy as turning over one's hand. Just as Mansu was about to make his move, Miri called him. Mansu lied, saying that he was interviewing with a friend. Miri did not expose the lie. Instead, as a wife, she spoke in a subtle way. No matter what happened, she would still stand by her husband. Because they were still a family. Their children were waiting for him to come home. Miri's words made Mansu even more determined. He used plastic wrap to seal Seonchul's mouth. Then he stuffed a funnel into his mouth. After that, he poured alcohol mixed with starch sausages into it. Before long, Seonchul suffocated to death. Mansu dragged the body into the living room, making the police believe that Seonchul had drunk too much alcohol and choked to death on his own vomit. The final obstacle had finally been eliminated. That night, Miri lied to her son, saying she had already checked and the thing Mansu buried was only a pig. He had used the electric saw to cut pork. After the interview, he even invited everyone to eat a whole roasted pig. But Miri still could not feel at ease. It was not until the sun rose that Mansu finally returned in the light of dawn. He tightly embraced Miri and said to her, "Everything is over now." Just as Mansu had planned, after eliminating one employee who was currently working and 2 potential competitors, the position at Moon Paper finally became vacant, and he became the only choice. The interview was merely a formality. The interviewer smiled and told Mansu about the company's development plan. They had built a fully automated factory. The era of manual papermaking had come to an end. This was a brand new era of AI. What they needed Mansu to do was supervise and promote the operation of the system. Once the system officially started running, the company could lay off a large number of employees. In the end, Mansu still stood on the opposite side. After experiencing painful inner struggles, he no longer had the courage to say no to the tide of the times. Ironically, the police eventually reached an investigation conclusion that was extremely favorable to him. To cover up the crime of killing her husband, Ara lied during the police interrogation. She said that after losing his job, Biomo had fallen into depression and was mentally unstable. She also said that before he disappeared, he had taken a gun with him. That gun was exactly the one manufactured in North Korea. Moreover, Biomo had once served in the military. Therefore, the police did not doubt Ara's testimony at all. At present, they believe that Biomo killed Si-cho, and they think he may be hiding somewhere outside and might continue committing crimes. Because of this, they even reminded Mansu to pay attention to his safety. Just like that, the 2 criminals unintentionally reached a silent agreement. In the blink of an eye, late autumn arrived. Mansu walked into the brand new factory. Just as the management had said, the place was completely automated. Everything operated in an orderly and stable manner. In this place, humans seemed to have become unnecessary. After a bloody struggle, Mansu finally obtained a position. But how long could that position last? No Other Choice is a film directed by Park Chan-wook and released in 2025. The content and theme of the film easily remind people of the movie Parasite from a few years ago. Both films tell stories about class conflict and the survival of the lower classes. However, this film presents the issue on a more macro scale and in a colder and more direct way. In an era where AI is rising rapidly, many jobs, especially in manufacturing, inevitably face being replaced by robots. Not only lower-class workers, but even middle-class people, like the protagonist in the film, can hardly avoid the risk of social decline. When the ecosystem of industries declines, fewer jobs, more people will lead to extremely fierce competition. The upper class, relying on monopolies and opportunities, will become increasingly secure. The lower you go, the more brutal the competition becomes. In the film, killing other applicants to get a job is an artistic exaggeration, but it reveals the cruel essence of competition. When a new era arrives, whether you want it or not, you still have to bear its impact. Just like the ending of the film, after all the brutal purges, Mansu ultimately only becomes a cog in the system, helping push many others into unemployment. That is the cruelty of the AI era, but at the same time it is also an inevitable trend that cannot be stopped.